I think this, Naresh, to me, it has two parts. One is, what's the future of HR? IBM conducts a global CEO study every year. And one of the questions they pose to CEOs is, as per them, what is the most significant factor contributing to sustainable economic value? And guess what? 70% of CEOs says it's human capital. And that's going to define the way organizations will do business. Which means the HR strategy is going to decide the future of business strategies.
So true.
And if that is so, HR as a function will go through unprecedented change, in my view.
Mhm.
The good part is many organizations are already using a lot of HR matrices, to influence how they recruit, how they engage, develop, retain, and even compensate their talent. Yeah. But as we leapfrog, I think HR analytics will take over a lot of critical HR decisions. Uh, to me, how it is going to shape, how HR analytics is going to shape the future of HR function, I think I would see it from three lenses. Yeah. The first lens is the way we are making decisions today. I think the decision making is a whole lot changing. Yeah. This is a function which was once driven and guided by instinct and intuition, is now beginning to use a lot of data and algorithm. And I train a lot of HR professionals, in the field of HR analytics. And, let me share a very interesting story. There was this HR guy who got trained under me. He was really excited, overwhelmed, went back to his organization. He was called in by the CEO to discuss a problem. CEO said, Mr. HR, we have this problem. There are this bunch of employees we have which are consistently underperforming. What do we do with them? And how do we really solve this problem? You know, what he said? He was just out of an analytics program. He said, we may have to make some more people who are productive underproductive or less productive. CS said, what are you saying? He said, because I don't have enough sample size to really perform predictive analytics to find out the independent variables that are impacting dependent variable, which is performance in this case. Yeah. So, jokes apart, but HR is beginning, I would say beginning to use a lot of data and algorithm, which is good. And it's going to, kind of decide the way business is going to be driven. And, what happened between that CEO and HR there is quite independent. The other lens I would say is the lens of flexibility. I think flexibility is going to be the key ingredient the way businesses will be done in future. If you look at the year gone by, two concepts have changed for sure. The workplace and the workforce. They will never have the same meaning again. Yeah. And with gig economy becoming over half of the pie of the total workforce, I think HR analytics will really enable the flexibility that is required for businesses to perform a lot better. I think that's the point number two. I think the third one is the way we are looking at HR analytics today, or we are looking at the problem solving, as Abhay also rightly mentioned. The way we are looking to solve these problems, and most of them are still today called projects. And I could hear some of the voices where we have to conduct project. I was consulting one of this organization in Bangalore, and they called me over to say, we have this people issue, and how do we really solve this? Why don't we take a 3-month project and solve it analytically? I said it will never get solved, because analytics is a process. It improves over a period of time, and if you're dealing with human beings, it better have to be a process rather than project. And I think that is where analytics will bring in a lot of structure to problem solving. Because in today's world, we don't even know what data is available, what's relevant. And, as per one of the PwC report, there is an 80% gap in what data is required and what is currently available to perform proper analytics in the field of HR. But the good news is, as one of the Deloitte report I was reading, that 35% of the organization are taking HR analytics very, very seriously over the next few years. I think that's a good sign for overall HR. And I think this is how HR analytics will completely change the shape of the HR functions. So I think that's an interesting perspective. And I think answer somewhere lies in what Abhilash was talking about.
Mhm.
if we reflect back, I think it's a amazing case that he was discussing with all of us. And I would like to bring your attention back to what he was talking, about sentiment analysis. He talked about a lot of stuff in terms of which is much beyond the current scope of what HR is doing. He was talking about performance. He was talking about safety. He was talking about well-being. These are some of the areas where uh, you know people with use of analytics are venturing into, which was never dreamt before. And I think to me, the role of HR will change in a manner that it will break the departmental silos. And most of the organization will work as a one cohesive unit. And Abhilash talked amazing stuff about variables like demographic variable like age, younger people versus older people, people with kids, maybe people with dags and cats and dogs. You don't know what variables will connect where, and a lot of organizations are using these specific instances or specific insights to draw a lot of insights about their workforce. And in order to really increase organizational performance and productivity. Organizations like Walmart, Nissan, Google has done some phenomenal work in the way they even interview people. Not only with use of analytics, they are you know discovering new channels of recruiting people, but the responses of participants in the interview or the candidates in the interview gives a lot of insights about the kind of attributes that person will bring on the table. Let me give you a very interesting example that happened in Google. When they were interviewing this candidate, and he was a whiz kid. At the end of the interview, a typical question obviously is, "You have any question for us?" His first response was, "Can I take a selfie?" Yeah, so they say, "Sure, why not? And do you have another question for us?" He said, "Can I bring my cats to work?" Now, this specific insight they picked up and really built the insight to say, what is this guy's strengths could be? He could be, he maybe he likes animals more than human beings. And these are just simple examples where it says that how analytics, how the information that you capture, and Devarun also talked about a raw data in itself has no meaning, but how do you use this information and work around it to really unlock the things that has never been even thought in the world earlier. And I think that is how a few areas where HR role will change. There are some more great examples people have done. UPS and other some of the other logistic organization have done some phenomenal work in the area of driver safety. They have done a lot of analytics to reduce the working hours for drivers. They have dramatically reduced their accident rate. They have used analytics combined with AI to really figure out and raise alarm when a driver could be feeling sleepy. They've used a lot of sensors, better route planning to ensure that he's spending lesser time on the road and more time with family. Now, is it a role of HR? I think it's a business role. And Avi also talked about how are we really defining those problems and how we are really maximizing. Uh, Other stuff, sent. There was another message on the chat, which how do you really increase the performance and measure the performance in flexible or work from anywhere kind of environment? I think Emphasis is a great example there, where they've done some phenomenal stuff in terms of how do you really measure, engage, and reward performance when in a scenario where you may, as Amrita also said, that her role is permanently work from home. And how do you really engage with those employees whom you possibly will never meet in person? Yeah? And how do you really re-engineer your entire HR performance measurement system to really reward and recognize those people? And I think some of the way these organizations will progress will completely redefine the way HR is working today and HR will be working in times to come. L&D, for example, over the last 2 or 3 years, the kind of work that has happened in the area of gamification, which is again uh, analytics powered by, topped up with AI, brought in a lot of challenge, competitiveness, which today's generation really love, and uh, as a method to learn new skills and develop new areas. Uh, IBM again has done a lot of sentiment analysis to engage their employees. For example, one of the things that they figured out uh, in one of these sentiment analysis to say employees who are taking breaks with with their friends are have friends at work are turning out to be more productive, better engaged, and higher retention rates uh, rather than people who are taking breaks alone. And how do they create an environment so that people are taking breaks in along with the people they like, and they restructure their break schedules. I think there's some great examples which was never possible uh, with analytics. And I always used to see, and there's another organization which figured out how every organization have those folks who in those sutta breaks are have only one thing to discuss. यार मैं छोड़ दूंगा यार अगले कुछ महीनों में मैं छोड़ दूंगा यार. You know,
Right.
if you look at, they are the one who are staying back, and all the good guys around him. And how do you really use those information to bring the entire magic of analytics together? I think Naresh, to me, the way I see it is, with all that being discussed today and around HR analytics, it is not a question if, but when HR will become the nucleus of the entire business strategy. So I think
So
from a
it'll also.
culture point of view, I think it is it will dramatically change with role of HR analytics. As Amrita talked about micromanagement, I think it will move from micromanaging. So any technology or any use of analytics will only get embraced with a simple question, what is in it for me? And if employees believe that this action is going to benefit me, it's going to enhance my productivity, I am evaluating myself rather than my boss is evaluating me, you know, which flips the entire situation from micromanaging to trust and empathy that Amrita spoke about. It has to be enabled, in a manner, especially in a work from home or work from anywhere environment where you are not next to your supervisor or a manager or a trainer. You're pretty much on your own, and the best possible method is virtual, where you are having some Zoom or meetings and things like that. In those situations, you have to use technology to really build, provide that environment to the to that employee where he's able to make that 1% improvement every day, with the use of information and data that is being culled out in a very different perspective. I think that, as Devarun said, the data is same, the information is same. How you're able to flip it around to enable, and you will see any technology, any HRIS or any other method that you have seen get embraced if it is make life easy for an employee. If we can make that attendance on a press of a button, if he can apply for that leave on a press of a button, or if he can put up that claim, he will start adopting that technology. I think same will go with analytics. If you really want to build the culture of analytics, you have to ensure that how it is going to be useful for that employee. You know, the simple question was, what is in it for me? And if that gets answered, I think the culture gets built around that. Just to add on to what Abhay said, I think there are two parts to it. One is, if it is a distorted data or a biased data, I think there is the right technologies that are available to handle that. I think that challenge is more addressable. I think the bigger challenge is when you don't have data and you have to build from scratch. I think that needs a lot of patience, commitment, uh, you know, uh, sponsorship from the stakeholders, involvement of a lot of people around to build, as Abhay said. I think that is a bigger challenge, and you have to have patience to build it again, and don't rush into drawing conclusion very, very fast. But I think if you're dealing with the biased data, I think that can be handled. I don't think that's a big issue in today's world.